fun, it's pretty amazing how shady McDonald's actually is.
These are dark times, there is no denying.
You might think it's no big deal to walk in, order a burger, get it in 2 minutes, and then leave. But apparently, such a thing can only be accomplished by bending or outright breaking every rule in the book. So grab a seat, because we're going to take a look at the top things that McDonald's doesn't want you to know. Chicken abuse.
Disgusting.
According to 2015 footage released by activist group Mercy for Animals, McDonald's works with farms that openly, brazenly, and possibly gleefully abuse their chickens before turning them into almost food.
What they found would make anyone lose their appetite.
The farm that Mercy for Animals targeted, T&S Farm, was recorded beating chickens to death with spiked clubs, with the occasional curb stomping just for variety's sake.
Oh my God!
The workers knew full well what they were doing, with one outright asking the cameraman, "You don't work for PETA, do you?" like a kid caught with his hand in an extremely bloody cookie jar.
And I don't think I'll ever look at a McNugget the same.
Since the video, McDonald's has disavowed the chicken-killing farm, giving the usual PR responses to assuage as many disgusted customers as possible. But not even the slickest press release can answer 3 burning questions. How long has this happened for? Why did it take this video for a major company to realize bludgeoning food to death for fun is evil? And since it's been over a year already, are they secretly working with that farm again? Why not take a second to hit that subscribe button and notification bell? Worker overtime at the Golden Arches.
Yes, McDonald's is open. Thanksgiving.
For a long time, McDonald's understood what Thanksgiving and Christmas meant, and so they allowed their workers to enjoy both the holidays and all the turkey that they can stomach. But in 2012, the food giant started opening on the holidays.
Just how horrible it actually is.
This was always a thing company-owned stores did, but now they were urging, really forcing franchisees to do the same. And yes, if you've hit McDonald's on either of these days, you're officially part of the problem.
Houston, we have a problem.
Commence feeling bad? Now, that's pretty sucky of them, but at least franchise owners can pay holiday overtime. Workers at the company-owned stores, unfortunately, are fresh out of luck. Mickey D's flat out refuses to pay them extra for working on a day that most of us believe only emergency responders should work on. They hide behind the excuse that because workers volunteer to work those days, they're not entitled to overtime pay.
Bullshit!
Yeah, because when you're dirt broke, struggling to raise a family, and living from minimum wage paycheck to minimum wage paycheck, you definitely have the option of not volunteering to get paid for something. Unhealthy, healthy options at Mickey D's.
Give me 700 Krusty Burgers! You want fries with that?
For some reason, enough people hit McDonald's with their health in mind for the company to make mad bank selling food meant to trim your waistline on the cheap. That sounds great, except that it's wrong in every conceivable way. The chicken kale Caesar salad, for example, clocks in at a cool 730 calories, 53 grams of fat, and 1,400 milligrams of sodium, numbers that absolutely should not be attached to a bunch of leaves.
Die, calories, die!
For comparison's sake, a double Big Mac has 680 calories and 1,340 milligrams of sodium, meaning that they're touting a healthy salad that's unhealthier than their unhealthiest hunk of cow. But don't worry, you can skip the dressing, eat a plain dry salad, and save 200 whole calories. So now it's only unhealthier than a single Big Mac. Small victories are still victories. Ronald McDonald the tax cheat.
That was last year's taxes. You have to pay again this year.
No.
According to the wonderfully titled Golden Dodges, How McDonald's Avoids Paying Its Fair Share of Tax, between 2009 and 2013, McDonald's avoided paying over $1.8 billion in taxes. The company used a series of barely legal loopholes to shift profits from whatever country they earned them in to low tax havens in countries they didn't. This seems to be especially true overseas.
America's fast food giant McDonald's is being accused of setting up an elaborate tax avoidance scheme,
where McDonald's is looking at charges that they stole €1 billion from the European Union by sending their profits through Luxembourg, a country barely big enough to physically store all of that money. McDonald's trademark lawsuits.
I believe that your case was going to trial not this Monday, but the following Monday.
Do you understand that?
Once you get greedy enough, any threat to even a dime of your profit must be fought tooth and nail, even if it means losing more money to lawyers than you ever would have to the competition. It's the principle that counts. In this case, we have McDonald's going after literally any small business that uses Mick or Mac, because that's their thing. And they don't want customers getting confused by seeing it anywhere else. The customer is apparently both always right and the dumbest people on the planet.
Tank Turner, customer satisfaction, how may I help you?
Sometimes they sue fast food joints like McJoy in the Philippines or McDouglas in Colombia, which was destroying McDonald's bottom line obviously with their 3 whole restaurants in a tiny village no one outside the tiny village had ever even heard of. But other times they just get petty, like when they sued a coffee shop called McCoffee, which had had that name for 17 years until they finally agreed to change their name and stop leeching the tens of dollars from poor little McDonald's. Though probably the stupidest case was when they went after a hot dog stand called McAllen, like a single hot dog stand, which is a product McDonald's doesn't even serve. That's like Budweiser suing some kid's lemonade stand. McDonald's lost that case after the judge returned with a verdict of, "Really?"
You serious?
But usually, McDonald's wins hands down in these setups, valiantly beating back the evil little guy with the almighty power of unlimited wealth. Minimum wage and McRobots. Does McDonald's food actually taste good? Who cares? It's cheap. One of the primary ways that McDonald's pulls that off is by paying the majority of its employees the least that it's legally allowed to do so. In most places, that's right at or close to the federal standard of just $7.25 an hour, an amount economic experts refer to as a complete tease. However, many cities and states have recently opted to raise their local minimum wages in the hopes that workers can finally afford more than a closet inside a studio apartment. In Arizona and Colorado, it's to $12 an hour, Washington $13.50 per hour, and for LA workers to $15 an hour. These states that have the audacity to pay workers a living wage could severely cut into McDonald's bottom line, so the company has responded by threatening to replace its employees with robots.
I am a machine.
Specifically, self-service kiosks. Robots work for free, at least until the uprising. Anyways, here's how it works. Customers come into a McDonald's, enter their order on a touchscreen, the company CEO buys another 500-foot yacht, and vacations in Bermuda. RoboClerk then sends the order to the kitchen, where an actual human, for now, puts the food together. They'll roll these kiosks out nationally and internationally if they prove to be efficient and cost-effective in test runs. What a golden time the future will be, when a screen instead of a human will ask, "Do you want fries with that?" McDonald's burgers do not decompose.
That is a burger to die for.
Burgers taste best when they're hot and freshly prepared. But if you order those things at Mickey D's and for some reason can't get to them for a while, like say a few months, don't worry about it. They'll still be fine, or at least they'll look fine. Eerily, McDonald's small hamburgers don't seem to rot at a regular pace, or much at all really. In 2008, a health blogger named Karen Hanrahan posted a photo of a McDonald's hamburger that she'd bought in 1996 and saved just to see what would happen. What happened is that after 12 years, it looked the same as it looked in 1996, and it also looked the same as a brand new McDonald's hamburger. Hanrahan argued that the immortality of the burger must be due to the vast array of preservatives in the burger, which rendered it chemical food that lacked any sort of natural nutrition. But according to food scientist J. Kenji Lopez-Alt, writing for Serious Eats, regular McDonald's hamburgers don't decompose normally because they don't and can't dry out. A typical McBurger is a non-perishable food on the level of dried beans, saltines, and other pantry staples. Paranoid of the apocalypse? Buying a fallout shelter? Install a McDonald's in there.
What can I do you for?
Get out of there. My family needs to use your bomb shelter.
Wasteland be damned, you'll never starve. How is this possible though? Simple. There's nothing to dry. A small McDonald's hamburger is thin but flat, making for a high surface area to volume ratio. Then it's cooked until well done on a hot grill, sucking out all the tasty, delicious, mortal moisture. No moisture means no bacteria decaying agents can propagate, ever. And thus, the food lasts forever. Basically, you're eating a mummy. McDonald's tax breaks. The 2015 launch of all-day breakfast at McDonald's led to two things: the meaninglessness of time with regards to breakfast being a morning thing, and increased sales at McDonald's nationwide.
Yes, sir.
Hi, I'd like some breakfast.
During the last quarter of that year, the company raked in a whopping $6.22 billion, attributable largely to the novelty of being served an English muffin with eggs on it just in time for Jeopardy! That being said, it's much easier for a company to rake in the profits if they're getting free money from the government so it can play with its menu and experiment with late evening hash browns. And they do. Between 2003 and 2013, McDonald's got subsidies from 42 state and city governments, totaling nearly $4 million. McDonald's even got a piece of the big federal bailout package in 2008 and 2009, a $203 million piece to be exact.
We still have $20. In this town, with our brains, we'll turn it into millions in no time.
McDonald's, too big to fail, and as long as government fat cats get literally fat off of midnight snack McGriddles, it never, ever will. McDonald's ground beef. McDonald's store signs claim billions and billions served, which means the number of burgers sold as much as it does the customers who have eaten those burgers.
Oh, hey, just relax. All I want's a burger and a beer if you get one.
To serve that many burgers, McDonald's has to slaughter and prepare an incredibly high volume of cattle in incredibly large and sophisticated meat processing facilities. McDonald's calls this burger creation the blending process, and it somehow gets more appetizing when you learn the step-by-step process. In a nutshell, just so many cows are slaughtered.
Who killed all these things?
Their meat gets mixed together and then formed into patties, but it's done so haphazardly that a single beef patty may contain the meat of up to 100 different cows. A Bessie is a Bessie is a Bessie, apparently. But hey, even if you eat nothing but McDonald's burgers, you're still eating a wide variety of food from all over the globe. McDonald's and the hot coffee lawsuit. It's the case most associated with frivolous lawsuits or an overly litigious society. The woman who successfully sued McDonald's after she went and spilled a cup of their coffee on herself.
You call this coffee? I call this America.
The reality of the case, however, is quite complex and, frankly, horrifying. In 1992, 79-year-old Stella Liebeck went through a McDonald's drive-thru and ordered some coffee. Once she was back out of the drive-thru, she pulled up on the lid to put in some cream, which, cools it down a little bit, and wound up dumping it all over her sweatpants-covered lower half. But coffee, especially McDonald's coffee, is hot. Even with clothes on, the brown stuff caused third-degree burns on over 16% of Liebeck's body, including her thighs and genitals, burning the skin away completely in some places. During her 8-day hospitalization, Liebeck underwent painful skin graft surgery. Liebeck sued McDonald's, initially wanting just $20,000 to cover medical costs and lost income during her recovery. That's not so bad, but as we've made perfectly clear thus far, McDonald's is both cheap and petty. The company offered $800, roughly 800 cups of McDonald's coffee, which was so insulting, Liebeck's lawyers took them to court. Ultimately, she was awarded about $3 million by a jury who did find her partially responsible because she pulled up on the lid too hard, but McDonald's mostly responsible for serving coffee way too hot for human consumption or handling. Among the information that came out in the trial, McDonald's required its restaurants to serve coffee at 185 degrees, which is way hotter than what Mr. Coffee produces.
Oh, don't do the hot coffee thing.
Well, this coffee is hot. Kind of like...
In fact, a thermodynamics expert testified a liquid that temperature can burn through human skin in as little as 2 seconds. Even more shocking, in the decade before the Liebeck case, McDonald's had received more than 700 complaints from people who had burned themselves on the coffee, and yet the company still refused to lower the temperature. They could have lost no money, they could have lost just $20K, but they lost $3 million, all because they were stubborn. Food, folks, and fantastic stupidity. We're not hiding anything from you. Hit that subscribe button and notification bell. And while you're here, check out our other videos.